Great. Welcome, everyone, as we wait for the meeting to start. Please feel free as you join to put in the chat your name. If you want to say hello to anyone, please feel free to do that. And we'll just wait a bit for the members meeting to start. I see we have got people are starting to join now. So thank you and welcome. The meeting will start shortly, but please feel free to use the chat to put in say hello to staff, say hello to friends, anybody you see, and please tell us where you're dialing in from. We'd love to see that in the chat of where you're calling in from. So again, thank you. We'll start at noon. And if you have any technical assistance that you need, please feel free to put those requests and questions into the Q&A, and Justin Levine will be. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I see people are starting to come in early. Again, if you have questions, please need technical assistance, please put those questions in the chat or Q&A, and Justin will be able to help you. But do feel free to put your names in the chat and where you're dialing in from. That would be great to see. I see we have Lorraine in. Thanks so much, Lorraine. You're our steady member. You're always here every year. Thanks so much for joining us. And Ellen Brown, great. Please feel free to put in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. It would be fun to see that. Thanks, Justin. Oh, I see someone is not able to use the chat, but put it in the Q&A. So I'm sorry for that. We'll see if, Justin, if you can enable the chat, that would be great. All right. Looks like we have Ellen Brown dialing in. Great to see. Great. I think we have the chat working now. So if you give that a try again, that would be great. All right, some more coming in. We'll have a few more minutes before we get started. Please feel free to shout out in the chat. And we have Ellen Brown zooming in from Macon County in North Carolina. Oh, we wish you lived a little closer too, Ellen. Hope you get up to the park soon. Oh, I see Richard and Kay Ryder. Thanks, Richard. Great to see you. I know you're dialing in, I believe, from Vermont. So I think the chat is working now. If anybody wants to post in where they're dialing in from, that would be great to see. Thank you all for joining. We'll be starting at noon, but feel free to shout out in the chat if you want to say hello to friends and staff. Oh, nice. John Davis from Split Rock Wildway. Love it. You can dial in from anywhere. And we have Douglas. Excellent. So for those just joining, thank you for joining us. We'll start at noon, but please feel free to use the chat to shout out where you're dialing in from and say hello to anyone you'd like. If you see a friend, to reply. Oh, and I see Karen has joined. Great to have you on with us. Oh, and Betsy, I see you've joined. Great to have you as well. And Michael. Fantastic. We have another 5 minutes. So again, please feel free to use the chat to shout out where you're dialing in from. Oh, great. Jeff from Albany. Fantastic. Oh, we've got people jumping in now. So for those who have just joined, we've said we've got about 4 minutes left before we get started, but please feel free to use the chat to let us know where you're dialing in from, and say hello to friends on chat that you see. Great. And again, remember, if you're having technical difficulties of any sort, feel free to post a question in the Q&A section, and Justin can help you with that. And you can also email him separately if you need to at jlevine, Levine, at adirondackcouncil.org. We have a couple more minutes before we get started. And for those who are newly joined, we're using the chat. So please feel free to throw in where you're dialing in from in the chat. We'd love to see where you're calling from. And feel free to shout out to friends you see that I have posted in the chat as well. Oh, hi, Valerie. Thanks so much, dialing in from Pennsylvania. Berkshires are also beautiful, and I'm so glad you were able to spend so much time. in those areas and hope you get up again soon. Hey, Lisa. The weather, believe it or not, we had a ton of rain, but it's sunny here in the eastern part of the park up in Elizabethtown. That's great. And we have Lisa in Schenectady. Hi, Lisa. Great to see everybody. I will say it's hot and humid here as well, Valerie, but it is nice to see the sun. All right. It's noon and it looks like we have quite a few people who have joined in. Great to see Jim and Leslie Cunningham, Jeffrey Levitt, Jerry Huntley. So many people have joined in. Thanks for coming. Feel free to use the chat to let us know where you're dialing in from. It's great to see people calling in from all over. But we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to say good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'm Debbie Pastor, Director of Development. And on behalf of all of our staff and the Board of Directors, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our 4th virtual annual members meeting. We are so fortunate to have members from all corners of the park, the nation, and the globe joining us here virtually today. The Adirondack Park is truly a unique national treasure as it protects the largest unfragmented deciduous forest in the world. Today, we want to extend a deep thank you to all of you for supporting our work to help deliver such powerful preservation. Through each and every one of you, using your voice to write letters and respond to action alerts, attending Lobby Day to speak with legislators, your generous financial support, it all makes our work possible. With your continued support of our organization, we are able to work together for a better tomorrow for our beloved Adirondack Park. While the park faces rising challenges due to climate change, economic uncertainties, and inadequate underfunded management, the future of the Adirondack conservation is bright thanks to people like those of our talented team who work toward progress every day. I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to the Adirondack Council team from our offices in Elizabethtown, Albany, Saranac Lake, and Racket Lake.
Hi there, I'm Justin Levine.
Hi, I'm Jess Grant.
Hi, I'm Amy Privatera.
Hi, I'm Rocky Geary.
On behalf of everyone here at the Adirondack Council,
I want to thank you for your support over the past year.
We want to thank you for your support over the past year.
We want to thank you for your support over the past year.
The Adirondack Park has faced some challenges,
but the park has also had great successes locally, in Albany, and in Washington.
While the woods, waters, wildlife, and communities of the Adirondacks remain resilient, there is still work to do.
There's still work to do.
Together, we can ensure that the current and future generations have access to the wildlands, wildlife, and respite that the Adirondack Park offers to all New Yorkers.
To all New Yorkers.
To all New Yorkers.
And with the active support of people like you.
We can continue to advocate on behalf of this national treasure that we all care so much about.
Thank you again from all of us at the Adirondack Council.
Thank you again from all of us here at the Adirondack Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again from all of us here at the Adirondack Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This dedicated group of people are leading the work we do on multiple fronts, from securing $2 million this year for SCALE, the Survey of Climate and Adirondack Lake Ecosystems, to protecting the health and resiliency of Adirondack communities in the face of a shifting climate. It is not work we take lightly nor for granted. The Council has been advocating for the ecological integrity and wild character of the park for 48 years, and we remain excited for the work ahead. To talk with us more about that exciting future, I am honored to introduce our new Executive Director, Rocky Aguirre. Rocky, who became Executive Director last month, comes to us with 10 years of experience at the Adirondack Council and nearly 30 years in large-scale conservation. Rocky, over to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that great update. Amazing video. Appreciate the effort that went into that from staff and particularly Justin Levine. First, I'd like to just kick things off and take a moment to acknowledge and thank former Executive Director Willie Janeway, who led the council so ably for the last 10 years. We all wish him well as he spends more time with family and friends out on adventures all across the park. Willie deserves that, and we're grateful that he's taking that time. There's a lot of other people to thank for making this member meeting happen as well, including our staff, board members, interns, former staff, and most importantly, all of our members, particularly those of you joining us today. Your dedication and support of the Adirondack Council does not go unnoticed, not by those of us who work and volunteer for the council, certainly not by the decision makers and legislators in Albany and across the North Country. You all play a vital role in shaping tomorrow's Adirondack Park through your commitment and support of our work. And as we see torrential floods across our region and smoke from Canadian fires fill up our skies, that work is more critical now than ever. Protecting our clean water and air, the wild spaces that are essential to the character of the park, and investing in ways to make our communities more resilient across the North Country are essential to the conservation success story of the Adirondacks. And we know and appreciate that you are all here today are passionate about that work, are invested in that work, and we'd like to get more input from you if we can. Nicole, if you could please launch the poll. We hope that you'll share with us what aspects of our programs excite you the most. And we'll give you here a minute to answer some questions and then continue on. So I'll give you a moment here. Excellent. Really thank you for your input. I can't underscore how much it helps us understand your priorities and your issues. And that's an essential part of the work and the considerations we take into effect at the council. Your ongoing support of the Adirondack Council's work over the past year has helped foster improved state land management, pass essential environmental policies, and provide funding to protect the ecological integrity and wild character of the park. I would also like to acknowledge that much of this progress wouldn't be possible without the support and hard work from our partners and collaborators, many of whom are with us here today. And I saw the results from the poll just pop up. That is really amazing information for us, and I think aligns with the priorities we have as an organization. Great feedback. Thank you. So what does this advocacy and work look like on the ground? I think you captured a lot of that in that poll. Among the long list found on our highlight sheet in your member packet, over 100 of you, including a scout troop from New York City, joined a large coalition of us and of Adirondack organizations in Albany this past January to tell lawmakers why the Adirondacks are important to you, and advocated on behalf of a number of conservation initiatives and policies. And it was pretty extraordinary. Through that effort, we were able to secure funding for essential data collection as part of a multi-institutional partnership funded by New York State that will study how climate change has impacted, I think, the close to over 400 lakes and water bodies across the Adirondacks over the past 40 years. That scale effort, as it is known, is an essential baseline data collection that will be institutional and become an incredible part of the data that we share looking at climate change over the next coming years. In addition to that, we secured $2.1 million for the Timbuktu Summer Climate and Careers Institute, which will bring high schooler students from New York City to the Adirondacks this summer to explore careers in science while immersed in the wild heart of the park. I'm excited to say that this program is actually underway, and I would like to acknowledge all that Kevin Schlad and Aaron Mayer have done to make this amazing program a reality. A number of us will actually be meeting with students this coming Sunday after our Forever Wild Day event in Newcomb to welcome them to the park for their Adirondack part of their experience, which is fantastic. Finally, we've secured $420,000 for the Adirondack Diversity Initiative, really to support the essential work that they're doing towards fostering a safe, welcoming, and accessible Adirondack Park for residents and visitors alike. All of these efforts and more are only possible through coalitions of Adirondack organizations and stakeholders who come together to find common ground on important issues. And when necessary, through tough negotiations and the savvy political advocacy that the Council excels at. These successes are vital as we look towards a long-range strategic solutions that combat the threats to our natural and human systems in the park. And despite those threats, those challenges, we here at the Council have hope. Our recent report, the Vision 2050, published in late 2021, is an analysis of long-range threats and opportunities facing the park. This report includes 3 major pillars, 18 pathways forward, and over 264 unique recommendations. It was informed by over 115 interviews with local business owners, educators, scientists, local and state government officials, environmental advocates, and a host of stakeholders. We really tried to reach across the spectrum in the North Country to get input for this report. This vision will help inform our priorities and work moving forward, and I believe will greatly influence what the park will look like for future generations. And just as important, this vision will pace our ongoing efforts to engage diverse interests and reframe how we work together with others. One of the things that makes the Adirondack Park a national treasure and a powerful conservation success story is the integration of private and public lands and the possibilities that this combination offers for nature and people to coexist and succeed together. I am truly excited about this opportunity and what it means for the future of the Adirondack Park and the entire North Country. The Council, with your support, will continue to champion for wilderness and wildlands, clean air and water, working farms and forests, and more vibrant communities. Together, we can face the challenges of a rapidly changing climate and other unforeseen threats, unthought of almost 50 years ago when the Adirondack Park Agency and the Adirondack Council both came into being. Towards this goal, we are excited about the future and the work ahead and the opportunity to build on the promise of the park by finding new ways for people and nature to thrive together. And with that, I'd like to pass the virtual baton to Jackie Bowen, Director of Conservation and the Conservation Team, to share some of those highlights surrounding our work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for this meeting. It is always a joy to be able to share the Council's successes that you helped make possible and enhance this place we all love, whether you're near or far. Before I dive in, I do want to share a quick reminder to use the Q&A feature in Zoom to post any questions that you may have for our team that we'll dive into following the presentation, and that can be found at the bottom of the screen. So I'm eager to share just 2 of the incredible successes that have occurred over the past year for the Council. The first one is a survey of climate change in Adirondack Lake ecosystems, often called SCALE, and the beginning of a visitor use management effort that the Department of Environmental Conservation, also known as DEC, has started in partnership with a national consulting firm called OTAC. The Adirondack Park landscape is ribbed and dotted with over 1,200 miles of rivers and over 3,000 lakes and ponds. Water is one of our greatest natural resources in the Adirondacks, and to help protect these waters, SCALE will build on the historical Adirondack Lake survey efforts that helped lead to federal policy changes to address acid rain across the country in the 90s. Building on the 1984 to 1987 data collection effort, present-day data will guide science-based management of our lakes. The Survey of Climate Change in Adirondack Lake Ecosystems seeks to explore the effects of climate change on habitat, species distribution, carbon accounting, and to track harmful algal blooms. When we know the data, we can adapt management accordingly and bolster lake resiliency. This work may sound familiar to you. Last year, SCALE was pitched to the legislature, and they made a $500,000 down payment to start the groundwork for the study. Excitingly, This year, the council, in working with partners like the Ausable River Association, where the Survey Corporation is now housed, and Cornell University, RPI, SUNY, and CUNY, and others, Scale now has $2 million to move forward with data collection on 400 Adirondack lakes. The study itself is a consortium with universities, nonprofit organizations, institutions, and government agencies all ready to roll up their sleeves and do this work. Another really important element to celebrate about this effort is that the data collected will be made publicly available and accessible. I do want to do a special shout out to our Albany government relations teams for all of their work to help make this happen in Albany, working tirelessly over the course of the past year with partners and with the legislature. A parallel victory has also come to pass within the last few months. The DEC announced that OTAC, an environmental consulting firm with national experience in recreation and visitor use research, won the bid to lead a visitor use management effort for 2 heavily used regions of New York, Catskill Cove in the Catskills, and the High Peaks in the Adirondacks. Prior to and separate from this effort, the council commissioned OTAC to do a visitor use study in 2021 to collect data in order to estimate visitor use levels and conditions in a sub-area of the High Peaks Wilderness Complex. OTAC looked at user levels at trailhead access points, trail corridors, and summits of Marcy and Algonquin peaks. They also looked at roadside parking levels along the Lodge and South Meadow Road for those who are familiar with the area. On July 3rd, we went public with the announcement of the study and the final report that will act as a baseline for the continued work of visitor use management in the Adirondacks. Now to the juicy part that people are most interested in is the findings that OTAC had from this report. And the first one is that based on intergroup encounters, so essentially how frequently groups encounter other groups along trail corridors, they found that visitors would encounter as many as 32 other groups in a 4-hour span on the Algonquin Trail Corridor, and as many as 40 for the Van Hovenberg Trail Corridor that ultimately leads up to Marcy. In terms of solitude, group encounters averaged occurrences every 7 minutes on the Algonquin Trail, while the Van Ho Trail was every 6 minutes. And that there was an average of about 260 visitors arriving per day at the lodge, with Saturdays often seeing more than 600 people. Through these findings, OTAC was able to make place and data-based management recommendations for the region within the High Peaks Wilderness Complex. If you're interested in looking more at the data and the findings that OTAC produced, as well as the management recommendations, I encourage you to take a look at the report, which Justin is going to post a link to in the chat. I'll conclude by saying that there's always work to be done in the Adirondacks, but the elevation of collaborative and publicly available science is critical to proactively and adaptively responding to changing conditions. It is through these types of efforts that we can all support our natural and human communities now and into the future. And this is all possible with your support, passion, and engagement. And for that, we are ever grateful. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jackie, and the team for all your vital work in conserving the Adirondacks. Again, I encourage you to please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to post any questions that you may have for our team. So go ahead and use that Q&A if anyone has questions of Jackie's presentation.
Feel free to lay it on me.
I did see one. Jackie, first question is, why is Scale so unique?
So Scale is unique because it is bringing together, as I mentioned before, a consortium of individuals ranging from academia to advocacy and to government to really look at the science needs and the climate science needs for Adirondack lakes, which is a really critical need at this point in time. And the other really important element of Scale is the fact that it is going to make the science and the data that's collected publicly available. If you'll recall, for those who have read our Vision 2050 report, that is one of the things that we advocate for and is a recommendation of that report to increase just knowledge sharing and overall better environmental planning within the park. And so this really is a great test case in some ways and just an effort that we would like to see replicated down the road as well.
Great. Let's see, the other question I see in the chat or in the Q&A, how can people stay engaged on or participate in the state's VUMF process, visitor use management process?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So the state has started its visitor use management process. They held a public meeting back in May of 2023 of this year, and they're going to be hosting another one in March of 2024. So they're taking the time this summer to do data collection, and then we'll come back to both the Adirondack and Catskill communities respectively and host public meetings, share those findings, and continue to solicit public feedback in that process, because that's part of the VOMF process is stakeholder engagement. I also see that we had a question about the group sizes within the study itself. So we found that the group sizes were about 2 people.
Great, thanks for that, Jackie. We have a comment from Thomas Hart that he'd like to have us produce a 10-year look forward regarding climate change in our Adirondacks.
It's great recommendation, Thomas. There's a lot of different partners in the park that are having conversation around climate, especially following the major rain events that we've been seeing over the last couple of days. You know, Long Lake has had a lot of destruction and damage, and knowing that that is going to only increase with time, it's a really important flag and something that we are talking about with partners as well.
Great. And I think we've got another question. What can we do to stay engaged on the Bond Act?
Oh, great question. So as you all, some of you may or may not know, there is a movement happening in terms of a listening tour that the governor has been doing across New York State right now to solicit public feedback on how, where, and types of projects that Bond Act funding should be used. As a reminder, that money can go to state, local governments, and it can also go to partners. And so if you want to be engaged in that process, take a look at the New York State's Bond Act website. Maybe Justin can post that, and thank you, Justin, in the chat. And feel free to, there's one happening in the North Country this Friday. There's one happening in Albany on the 20th. And then there's also going to be a virtual meeting on the 26th. So if those are opportunities that you want to engage on, that's a chance to do so. And, you know, stay tuned. We'll have some information coming out about the council's priorities in relation to Bond Act funding as well soon.
Great. And I think we'll take one more question I see. Did the wildlife crossings bill pass? And if not, what are the chances of next year?
Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on this one. Kevin, is there a chance you could jump in for this one?
Hi, everybody. Happy to. Yeah, unfortunately, the Wildlife Crossings Act did not pass both houses this year. It did pass in the Senate, but we're very optimistic that it will pass next year. It's broadly supported. It essentially got caught up in the time running out at the end of session. A lot of bills, a lot of different priorities from various legislators, and not enough time to get them all done. So we're optimistic that it'll get done next year, thanks to the support from all of our incredible partners.
Thank you, Kevin.
Great. I think that's all the questions we have, Jackie and Kevin. Over to you, Rocky.
Thanks, Debbie. I actually have a ton more questions, but we can save that for offline stuff. So I really appreciate that, Jackie. I know there's a lot of work that you and the conservation team undertake that stays out of the limelight and is just really, you know, important to the core work that we do. Thank you again. Thank everyone that's been a part of this process. Some of these issues will have long-term lasting impacts on the Adirondacks, and we have a great team engaged around our conservation work. So I just want to thank everybody for your support. All of what you contribute makes this work possible. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're always striving to work together to help shape tomorrow's Adirondacks for the better. And as we turn towards the official annual members meeting portion of the program, I would like to take a moment to just introduce our board chair, Sarah Hatfield. Take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Rocky. It is 12:23. This virtual annual members meeting of the Adirondack Council will now come to order. Welcome, and thank you for being here today. Of the many contributions that Willie Janeway made to the Adirondack Council as its executive director for the past 10 years, the assembly of an effective, powerful team is one of his greatest. With special thanks to Willie, and on behalf of the board of directors, it's my great pleasure to express our excitement for our new executive director, Rocky Aguirre. Congratulations. To you, our members, thank you for your generous support. This was a record year with over $3 million raised. Thank you for those who participated in the Tad and Nancy Jeffrey Challenge Match. Thank you to the Jeffrey family for inspiring giving that may not otherwise have been received. It has been a remarkable year. The accomplishments and highlights handout in your members' packet is a summary of the impact of your generosity. I now ask Finance Committee member Douglas Schultz to present the fiscal year 23 financial report.
Hi, everybody. I'm Douglas Schultz, member of the Finance Committee and Council Board. Kurt Welling, our current treasurer, is stepping down from the position shortly. Kurt has done an amazing job and has been an excellent steward of the council's finances during his tenure as chair of the Finance Committee. I'd like to express my deep appreciation for all of his efforts. I think many of us have learned much from Kurt, and this will serve us well going forward. The council's finances remain strong for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 23, with over $9.4 million in assets on the balance sheet compared with $8.9 million last year at this time. In fiscal year 23, there was $3 million in funds available from donors and members, the Forever Wild Fund, other miscellaneous income, plus $168,000 in bequests and gifts to the Forever Wild Fund. This supported $3 million in program and conservation advocacy work. These numbers are preliminary and have not been audited. This compares to $2.8 million donated last fiscal year for the annual program funding. Expenses for the year ending June 30th are projected to be $3 million, approximately $200,000 less. Seems like I got disconnected. I can't see anymore. Sorry, everyone. As a result of careful expense control by management and the board adopting a conservative budget, the council expects to end the year with close to $1 million in operating cash. The council's Forever Wild Fund stands at $8.5 million, up from $7.5 million on June 30th, 22. New gifts to the fund totaled $168,000, including $140,000 in realized bequests. The Adirondack Park and the Adirondack Council are very fortunate to be the recipients of such generous support from so many. Thank you to you all. In conclusion, I'm excited about the prospects for our fundraising efforts. I'm convinced that our mission and messaging resonate strongly, especially with the negative effects of climate change evident all around us. And we will continue to attract new donors of all sizes in the coming years. That's it for the report. And if there are any questions, please post them in the Q&A. All right, if I don't see any questions, then I'm going to move to accept the fiscal 23 financial report and the minutes of the July 8th, 22 virtual members meeting.
Thank you, Douglas, for the motion, and Secretary Ethan Winter for the second. Having a quorum, please launch the poll so all present can vote. Thank you. And let's see. Excuse me for the Adirondack background noise. I think the poll has been launched. Here are the fantastic. Thank you so much, Nicole, for those results. And the ayes have it. Thank you very much for being here today and for voting. We'd like to take a moment now to recognize 5 retiring members of the board and to express our sincere gratitude for their history of service to both the Adirondack Park and the Adirondack Council. Per the Adirondack Council bylaws, board members are allowed to serve for three-year terms before being required to rotate off the board. It is an honor to note that the following board members have collectively served a remarkable 88 years on the board of the Adirondack Council. Please join me in applauding these retiring members: Charlie Canham, Liza Cowan, Bob Kafin, Douglas Stewart, and Kurt Welling. I call on Ann Carmel, Chair of our Board Governance and Development Committee, to present and to move a motion to approve the election of this year's candidates.
Hi, thank you, Sarah, and thank you to our retiring board members. Fortunately, we still have a very strong board, and we nominate, we elect roughly 1/3 of our board of directors for a term of 3 years. Today, the Board Governance and Development Committee is confirming the re-election of 5 directors whose terms were expiring. In keeping with the committee's recommendations and the vote of the membership of the Adirondack Council, I am confirming the slate for the re-election to the board of Mary Bajor, David Bronston, Rush Holt, Eric Lawson, and Jerry Page, all for 3-year terms. Brief bios of our slate of directors were sent earlier in the members' packet. Please refer to those documents should you like to learn more about the slate. That concludes the report of the Board Governance and Development Committee. I'd like to move to accept this slate for the fiscal year 23.
Thank you, Anne, for the motion to approve these candidates, which has been seconded by Secretary Ethan Winter. Nicole, please launch the polls so all present are able to share their vote. Thank you all for voting. I'm hoping we have the results. Fantastic. Thank you for voting. Based on the mailed and emailed ballots, 131 proxies received, and the results of this poll, I declare the slate elected. I am honored to lead this exemplary organization that works with so many individuals and organizations, many of whom are on this call today, who do extraordinary work for this special park. Before we can open the floor for questions with our Executive Director, Rocky Aguirre, I want to thank the staff and all of you, the members of the Adirondack Council, for your commitment to the clean air, clean water, ecological integrity, and wild character of the park. On your screen, here are the names of the current board of directors, as well as last year's members. With appreciation that is difficult to adequately express, thank you for your service, your support, and your love of this truly unique national treasure, the Adirondack Park. Rocky, over to you.
Great, thanks, Sarah. And I'd like to take a moment just to say thank you to you and all that you've done over the last 2 years to really lead the board, and to the entire board for their service. I think it's moments like these when we get to see outgoing board members that we really understand the dedication and the commitment that you have all made as board members to the organization. I'm going to go a little off script here because I think one is to just compliment all the staff on this, new technology, and the way we've tried to implement these virtual meetings have really allowed us to engage the membership in a different way. And I think they really are valuable in that. I also just want to say what a pleasure it's been for the last 10 years to work with the outgoing board members. And it's really hard to underscore how much some of these board members have had. Charlie Canham is a renowned forest ecologist. Liza Cowan, her family's been a part of the council for almost 50 years. Bob Kafin has been a truly inspiring legal mind on all things environmental relating to the Adirondacks. Douglas Stewart has really provided deep political background and understanding from his Washington, D.C. Perspective. And Kurt Welling has just been a titan in terms of our financial stability, our support, and just the growth of our endowments and all of the financial support and securities that we've set in motion. Kurt has really been instrumental in those, and it's a really powerful group of folks who are moving off of our board at this time. So I did want to leave time for us to open up to questions and to really provide a little bit more direct one-on-one with the members, and really, answer whatever questions are out there, and to really engage with folks a little bit more directly. And if I don't know the answers, we have a great staff who can help me out. So Debbie?
Great. Thanks so much, Rocky. And hear about the board. An incredible group leaving and an incredible group remaining. We're truly blessed. One of the questions we have, and again, reminder to everyone, please feel free, if you have a question, post it in the Q&A and we'll share that with Rocky. The first one we have are, what are the biggest legislative priorities for the next year?
That's a great one. We've kind of been touching on a lot of them. And one of the things that I'll just mention is that our legislative priorities rarely get completed in 1 year. And that's anything from constitutional amendments, which take successive legislative votes annually. So it's something that, is a 2-year recurring process, to funding requests. These priorities in the legislature and the work that it takes behind the scenes to kind of move these projects forward just takes time and an enormous amount of resources. I would just say off the top of my head, increased scale funding. That scale project probably is going to need to be coming in at a full funding number of around $11 million. So the fact that we've started to get that funding in place is just the tip of the iceberg. I think for us to do that right, to create the baseline of data that scale can provide, is going to take years, multiple legislative funding asks, and just a lot of cooperation amongst Adirondack groups. I would say the same thing for the Timbuktu project that we've just started. The Institute, we've got a great inaugural amount of 2.1 million. We've got full class loads of New York City-based students who want to come to the Adirondacks. That is only the beginning. And to really make that project all that it can be is just going to take committed, recurring funding support. I think we touched on the Wildlife Crossings Act. That's an essential one. We tend to think of those legislative priorities and those sort of wildlife protection acts as, especially the crossings piece, as more Western based. But the ability for us to start to look at key wildlife habitat corridors and put in place mechanisms to allow them safe passage across our busy highways in particular, that's going to be, as Kevin said, to pick that up and get that past the finish line this coming year. I think I would also just close out by saying maintaining forest preserve stewardship as a dedicated line item in the EPF. That's something that, I think needs to happen. And then definitely Adirondack diversity and funding. I think all of those are really essential in the coming year, along with new APA appointments. So.
Great. Thank you, Rocky. From Jeffrey asks, purchasing of Whitney, any progress in negotiations?
So those have been very confidential, and the council has been engaged as needed. My sense is that there is progress that hasn't been made public, and I don't know where they're at personally. I think right now those are happening both at a state and with various nonprofit partners. there's an expectation that Whitney, there's a conservation solution for Whitney. And I think that's one of the things we're looking at and hoping to see move forward, or at least get more information on in the coming year. So that's perhaps the most sensitive of all the large scale acquisitions that remain out there. So we're all paying attention to that with as much attention as we can focus. So
Great, thank you. And also Thomas asks, related to your comment on the synergy of public and private land conservation efforts, we're seeing big backlogs and very slow transaction work to add lands to the forest preserve. Does the council have a role in helping fix the problem of inadequate staffing at DEC and the comptroller's office that would solve this problem?
I mean, we have one of the largest megaphones, and we have made, it clear that we see full funding and support of all of our management agencies as essential. And it's not just essential for, the acquisitions, but it's for trail maintenance, it's for, campground maintenance, it's for all the things that management, the DEC and APA need to do. So we're well aware of that. I think, we've been successful in pushing to see forest preserve and funding requests come in there, particularly around forest rangers. It's a hard thing to move forward. There's so many pieces involved in terms of getting those acquisitions moved to completion. Yes, we are paying attention, we are adding our voice, and we are lobbying on behalf of those, finding ways to streamline that. When we talk about increasing the governance of the park and the efficiencies within the park, that's exactly the kind of efforts that we're putting time and energy and resources into.
Great. I think that's it for the questions that we have. So thank you, Rocky. And thank you everyone for your good questions and your ongoing support as we work to address all of these issues. I think we will turn it over now to Nicole.
Thanks, Debbie. Good afternoon. I'm Nicole Gotham, the Assistant Director of Development here at the Adirondack Council. And I just want to thank you all again for joining us this afternoon and for your generous support of our work to protect the park. We're really excited to be honoring our award recipients this year and hope that many of you will be able to join us during the celebration this weekend on July 15th, which is Saturday, at Crown Point State Historic Site. To give us a little bit more background on who we'll be honoring this year, here's our rewilding associate, John Davis, followed by our Director of Government Relations, Kevin Schlad.
Greetings, Adirondack Council supporters. This is John Davis, rewilding advocate of the Adirondack Council. Pleased and proud to recognize my friend and colleague, Chris Marin, who about 15 years ago, after a distinguished career at the Nature Conservancy, co-founded and has since directed Champlain Area Trails, affectionately known by its acronym CATS. Chris and CATS have protected about 1,000 acres here along the Adirondack coast, most of this in Split Rock Wildway, the wildlife corridor linking Lake Champlain with the Adirondack High Peaks. And they have also crafted more than 75 miles of trails. Again, much of this in Split Rock Wildway. Adirondack Council is delighted to honor Chris Marin and Champlain Area Trails this year. Please join us in thanking them for their great work.
The Adirondack Council is proud to recognize the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus as its 2023 Conservationists of the Year. We lovingly refer to them as the Caucus. So who are the caucus? They are a body of 76 members of the New York State Legislature, united by a common interest in the legislative process and how it affects the lives and well-being of the people in general, and in particular, those people with ties to the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian communities. Over the past 3 years, the caucus has made the Adirondacks a centerpiece of their people's budget and policy agenda. They have used their immense political power in support of wilderness, wildlife, green jobs, clean air and water, community vibrancy, and the highest standards of science. Collectively and as individuals, The caucus has opened doors for organizations throughout the Adirondacks, including the Adirondack Foundation, Ausable River Association, Adirondack Experience, John Brown Lives, the Adirondack North Country Association, SUNY ESF Newcomb Campus, local government leaders, and others who have made progress on shared regional priorities. In just the last 3 years, the caucus has led the way in securing important victories for the Adirondacks. $2.5 million for a survey of climate and Adirondack Lake ecosystems. They increased the annual state budget allocation for the Adirondack Diversity Initiative from $250,000 to $420,000. They secured $600,000 for the cutting-edge visitor use management project that will benefit wilderness lands and promote equitable access for the public. They secured $2.1 million for the Timbuktu Summer Climate and Careers Institute, now 2 years running. They worked to secure the appointment and confirmation of the first person of color to serve on the Adirondack Park Agency Board. In support of our partners, they have also taken numerous actions benefiting a broad array of quality of life projects for the Adirondack region, too many to mention here. To add a little more depth to some of the highlights that I've mentioned, the Survey of Climate and Adirondack Lake Ecosystems is a groundbreaking study of hundreds of Adirondack lakes that will study climate-impacted waters of the Adirondacks. When completed, this data will serve as a tool for New York State in combating climate change to protect communities living on the front lines of climate change, both inside and outside the Adirondack Park. Adirondack water quality data has long served to protect public health in vulnerable communities, and this survey will build on that legacy. This data will be publicly accessible and collected by a consortium of experts in keeping with recommendations from the Adirondack Council's Vision 2050 report. The Timbuktu Climate and Careers Institute is a CUNY-SUNY partnership that will provide opportunities to high school students living on the front lines of climate change in urban environments to learn about careers fighting climate change. The first cohort of Timbuktu students are meeting right now and arrive in the Adirondacks this weekend. As I mentioned before, the caucus made Adirondack history, working with Governor Hochul in early 2022 to secure the nomination and confirmation of the first woman of color to serve on the Adirondack Park Agency Board, Benita Law Diao. Benita is uniquely qualified to serve this agency, drawing upon her decades of professional and volunteer experience serving the North Country as a nutritionist with the Department of Health and organizing and leading first-time experiences in the outdoors for people of color with a group called Outdoor Afro. Diverse backgrounds and experiences make the Adirondack Park Agency stronger, and we must continue this progress. Let's be clear. Though their impact in the Adirondacks has been nothing less than transformative, their Adirondack accomplishments are but a footnote in the long and impressive list of advances they have made in recent years for voting rights, criminal justice reform, health care, living wages, economic development, and so much more. In a short amount of time, they have collectively stepped into a prominent leadership role in the Adirondacks, taking up the cause of speaking for New Yorkers that may have visited the Adirondacks, may hope to visit the Adirondacks, or may never visit the Adirondacks at all. Regardless, their actions speak volumes about the importance and value of the Adirondack Park to all New Yorkers, and they have done it in the only manner they know how, with authenticity, with inclusivity, and with an eye towards equity and justice. Please join me in congratulating the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus as the Adirondack Council's 2023 Conservationist of the Year. We hope to see you under the tent this weekend at Forever Wild Day.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, John. Great updates. Really excited about having the caucus and being able to honor them, as well as Chris Marin and Katz, both an Albany and a regional presence. And I think it's just really a fitting statement on the different pressures and the different places that the council wants to put and work in. And I really think that the caucus and Katz in particular represent that full world that the council does engage in. And with that, I would just say that this concludes the formal meeting. I would like to close by thanking all of you for attending our 4th annual virtual meeting. One of the great benefits of holding these meetings virtually is the chance to connect with folks from all over the nation who care about the protection of the park. We do hope to see many of you this weekend at our annual Forever Wild Day celebration at Crown Point State Historic Site, where we will formally honor our special guests. It's also just a chance for you to take some time to get to know staff, fellow members, those of us who are all passionate about the park. We all have such fond memories and deep connections with this natural place, with these wildlands. You never know, you may just be inspired for your next Adirondack adventure, and maybe we'll tag along with you. I would like to extend a special thank you, especially to our patrons and sponsors who will be listed on the screen at the end of this meeting. With their support, they really do make this special celebration of Forever Wild Day and of the park possible. So with that, I will pass it to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Rocky. I'd just like to say it's so meaningful to hear from all of these voices that are the Adirondack Council. And I hope that you will take the opportunity on Saturday in Crown Point to pick their brains as we do on the board. It is such a tremendous group to learn from. I now declare this meeting adjourned. We hope to see you, please, on Saturday. Please mark your calendars for Forever Wild Day 2024, which is July 13th, 2024. Thank you for your support of the Adirondack Council, and above all, for being loyal stewards of the Adirondack Park. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.